Hello, everybody. You have tuned in to Eric Jose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. How are you doing today, everybody? We are here today to talk about a case, a very interesting case out of Illinois, out of Cook County. It's the people of the state of Illinois versus Jesus Sanchez, and it's very interesting. So what happened is that a judgment has been issued by the Illinois Appellate Court that has now overturned the trial court, the Cook County trial court's decision, and then we're going to go here through its citing of the reasons why, basically. And let me tell you, more than just one or two of the things that are pointed out in this judgment, the opinion by the judges, is there's a lot of them that parallel Stephen and Brendan. There's a couple that parallel Stephen and a bunch that parallel Brendan. In terms of tactics used on Brendan in his interrogation, this very similar tactics were used on Jesus Sanchez in this interview by police. And the thing is, Jesus Sanchez is 18 years old, so 2 years older than Brendan. And so this appellate court has cited how it's unacceptable what happened in this case, and a lot of the kind of being ignorant to what was, what should have been investigated and what wasn't, in terms of they had a consistent story from pretty much everyone that they had talked to that night about the fact that Jesus Sanchez did not have a gun that night, and that the person they were looking for was this person that they all knew as Bone Crusher, who is, I believe, one of these Serrano gang, members. So it's like he's from and this person would be from a completely different gang. It would understand. It would make sense why he would come in and shoot at this rival gang member. And when you see what happens here, the evidence in the case, how they just pushed forward with this, even though the evidence in the case wasn't really adding up and pointing to Jesus. It was really not. So we're going to go into a lot of this here. So first thing we're going to see is the opening, where it's going to kind of just do a little bit of explanation of what was going on here, and then we'll come back real quick. Around 8 p.m. on May 1st of 2013, near a Wheeling, Illinois neighborhood called Wine Tree, Miguel Cortez stood on Bridle Trail talking with Sanchez. That's Jesus Sanchez, basically who this is about. Brian Estrada, Hiladio Flores, and Scarlett Rodriguez. Rodriguez got a call from Danielle Pettibone, who invited her to visit. Miguel escorted Rodriguez to Pettibone's home in the building numbered 490 in Wine Tree. As Miguel and Rodriguez walked away, Colin Scheffler drove up to the group in a white car with two passengers, Leslie and Brett. Miguel left Rodriguez at Pettibone's home and went to rejoin the group on Bridle Trail. On the way, Miguel, a member of the Maniac Latin Disciples, encountered several members of the Sereños, a rival street gang that operates in Wheeling. Rafael Orozco, Edson Calleros, and Miguel's father, Martin Cortez, joined the group, who stood near the street lamp between building 486 and 492, south of the Pleasant Run Drive and north of Equestrian Drive. 4 gunshots rang out. Orozco said he had been hit. Martin held Orozco while Miguel tried to stop the bleeding. An ambulance carried Orozco away a few minutes later after police arrived. Sergeant Michael Conway activated his dashboard camera as he approached the area. The initial report indicated that a drive-by shooting from Equestrian Drive had occurred. About 30 minutes after Conway arrived, he saw Sanchez and Estrada running toward him, chased by several members of the Serranos gang. Conway handcuffed Sanchez and Estrada and ordered them to sit on the curb. Detective Ignacio Oropeza came to the scene and saw one of the Serranos, who said that Sanchez knew something about the shooting. After leaving Sanchez and Estrada handcuffed on the curb for more than 30 minutes, Conway placed them in separate cars and for transport back to the police station. Detective Michael Biesch also went to the scene of the shooting. He found Flores, then 15 years old, hiding in bushes in the backyard of 1009 Pear Tree Lane. Police brought Flores to an interview room in the police station where Beachkey questioned him. An officer took Sanchez's cell phone, and Oropeza placed Sanchez in an interview room and spoke with him briefly at 10:30 p.m. An officer swabbed Sanchez's hands around 11 p.m. and sent the swabs to the police lab to test them for gunshot residue, GSR. You'll see GSR referred to later on here, so I just want to make it clear what that means. It's just gunshot residue. The same officer later collected Sanchez's clothes and sent them to the lab for the same test. Orozco died that night from a single gunshot wound in the back, or to the back. Alright, so I'm going to kind of show you a little map of the area here real quick that was put in by the judges at the end of this opinion. So that you can kind of maybe get and kind of somewhat familiarize with the layout of the area and how things supposedly played out. So here, let me show you that real quick. So this is the area that this all took place. So here is Bridal Street. This is where all the boys were hanging out. And there was that girl, Miss Rodriguez, that got called by her friend, Miss Pettibone. And so Miguel ended up taking her or whatever. They go, I don't know if they went around this way or if they were able to cut through here, but they go over. He takes her to somewhere over here because these are the buildings right here where Mr. Orozco gets shot. So, and what's happened is so they leave here and they're going this way. Okay, somebody comes by in a black car and ends up firing 4 shots, and one of which hits Orozco. Orozco was standing facing this direction up here. He was facing this way, but he was somewhere right here, facing up here. Okay, so his back was to this street. His back was to here. Okay, so the car comes by, fires 4 shots, and 1 shot hits Orozco in the back right here. Okay. Upon hearing the 4 shots, all the friends sitting over here talking or whatever panic because they realized it was coming from this direction, and they know that their friend was just going there. So they all it just so happened that after that guy left with Miss Rodriguez, that their friend pulled up in his car, so they all jump in to go over to see if their friend is okay because they know he was going in that direction. So that's where they end up here basically, and then they run into the Serranos and all that starts going on, and they're running around, you know, trying to run away from them and everything that's going on. I mean, it's a crazy circus from what I can tell, and but clearly I don't think these officers were thinking very clearly. You know, I mean, I just don't get it. They didn't really take into account what was really going on here. They didn't take in. I mean, I don't understand how investigators ignore consistent witness accounts and act like it's just nothing. It just boggles the mind. But anyway, so that's basically kind of wanted to get everybody a kind of a grip on where kind of this was happening and where kind of things were in reference to it. So also wanted to say this is Pear Tree Lane up here. They ended up finding Mr. Flores hiding in one of the backyards of these houses right here, and then brought him in for questioning. But I just thought it was worth a mention that it was up here in one of these backyards that they found Mr. Flores cowering, I guess you might say, or at least just fearful after being chased by so many Serranos. So anyways, but they found him in one of these backyards. hiding behind a bush or some such thing. So, anyways, there we go. Okay, so there you get a kind of layout of the area there and how things, laid out logistically. The thing is that all accounts put that any of the counts that put Jesus there as a shooter all put him there north of Mr. Orozco. Okay, the whole problem with that, and like I said, this should have been another reason why the prosecution should have realized they were barking up the wrong tree. But if that's the case, then he couldn't have shot Mr. Orozco in the back, because Mr. Orozco's back was facing south. So yeah, anyways, just thought everybody might like to take a look at that, how that area kind of mapped out there. So it's reported a black car came by and fired the 4 shots. The car that they all jumped into over on Bridal Lane or whatever it is over there down at the bottom, it was a white car that their friend drove up in that they jumped into. So that was a white car. Well, the account is that there was a witness account that saw a black car, and they saw the 4 flashes and heard the shots. So yeah, so there's plenty of reason to recognize that they were getting it wrong. But as it is so many times, they go so far with something, if they discover that they are wrong, they're not wanting to admit that. And so they're basically willing to let a guilty person, somebody who's actually a danger or something, to go free, because they don't want to hurt their own pride or admit that they are human and actually can make mistakes. That's what it really comes down to. And one that really comes to mind is Kim Worthy. She's a peach. What she did and ignored in terms of Devontae Sanford there in Michigan, I mean, it should be criminal. I mean, honestly, she should be wearing a striped jumpsuit or some such thing herself, in my opinion. Had she done the right thing 8 days after the conviction, when the real perpetrator of the crime came forward, claimed the responsibility, led them to basically the pistol that proved that he knew, because that gun matched the ballistics at the crime scene, of course, and so that totally corroborated that it was him that did it, and not Devontae Sanford. He even issued an affidavit saying one of the reasons why he came forward was because he wanted to make it clear that Devontae Sanford was in no way involved, because he had seen that on the news, I guess, and stuff. And so, yeah, and what does Kim Worthy do? She ignores it. And instead of, because this guy came in and admitted to killing 12 different people, and 4 of those 12 people were the people that she had convicted Devontae Sanford of killing. And rather than get Devontae Sanford out after only 8 days, she opts to just leave him there and only goes after the hitman for 8 of those 12, and keeps Devontae Sanford locked up and behind bars, even though he didn't do anything, because her pride, and that's really what it is. It's absolutely about her pride, and she's not the only one. I can guarantee that. There's going to be a lot more where that comes from around the country. So anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, I'll leave the link to the couple of Devontae Sanford videos that I've done, so that you can kind of see that real quick and get an idea of who I'm talking about. So now we're going to move into basically what kind of happens after, they put the cuffs on Jesus and his friend Flores. So basically, it's Sanchez and Flores. They come running up, like, you know, they've been running, I guess, from some Serenos, and they run like to the cops because I guess they were kind of worried. I guess they were outnumbered and that sort of thing. So, anyways, they run over to the cops. Well, what do the cops do? The cops just say, "Oh, okay, sit down over here on the curb." You know, click, click, and put the handcuffs on them, both of them. They have them sit there for like 30 minutes while they're all doing whatever various things. Then they come over and talk to them a little bit, and then get them up and put them each in different police cars and to go back to the station. And then they basically talk to everybody separately, even some of the people that were there that were just like witnesses or whatever, or had seen the fight between Orozco, I believe it was, and Sanchez and his friends over there. Okay, so now we're just gonna basically get all the particulars of this interrogation of Mr. Jesus Sanchez. So here we go. This bit is a little bit long, but I think all the information in it is really kind of important, because when you see how he was, treated and what techniques were used on him, that you can really see the parallels between him and Brendan, even though he was 2 years older than Brendan was when Brendan was facing this sort of thing. So I would say, age isn't, if an 18-year-old is possible, if he can be coerced in this fashion, then I think certainly a 16-year-old, and certainly a 16-year-old like Brendan is certainly susceptible as well. But so this appellate court is, that's one of the cool things about this appellate court, because they're kind of sending a message, and I kind of wonder, is this like, did they read like Judge Robner's opinion, where she implores other judges and her fellow judges to really get caught up on the statistics and the wrongful conviction statistics and the wrongful confession statistics, and look at how those numbers have been growing, like by leaps, and bounds, as the Innocence Project puts it, that it continues to mushroom. The numbers in terms of wrongful convictions and false confessions continue to mushroom, so I wonder if maybe these judges read Judge Robner's words and took them to heart. And when they saw this particular case come through the appellate court, they just had to swat it down, and rightfully so. It's this whole thing is a mess, just like the Stephen and Brendan case, just like Stephen and Brendan's cases, I should say. This whole thing is a mess. What they do exactly what they do with Brendan, where they say, "Oh, we know exactly what happened. You need to tell us the truth," type of thing, and that's when, after a long time, after a very long time, Mr. Sanchez eventually is asking to see his mother, because she doesn't have any idea where he is. She's in the hospital. He's telling the cops that she just had surgery. She hasn't been feeling well. She's in the hospital right now. She just had surgery, and she has no idea where I am. I really need to talk to her, and everything. So these deputies play games with them and stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and move into that part now, and we'll come on back after that. About 10 hours after police brought Sanchez to the station, he changed his account. Bush asked, "Did Brian do something?" "What did Brian do? You're almost there." Sanchez answered, "He's the one that shot." Bush asked where Estrada stood when he shot the gun. Sanchez said, the farthest parking lot. Bush suggested that Estrada stood on Equestrian Drive or by the tennis courts, and Sanchez pointed to a spot on the map the police had showed him. Bush accused Sanchez of lying and said, "Everybody's telling me that you had a gun, and that is not true." by the way. Sanchez said, I didn't have anything, sir. I put it on my mom's life right now because she's so sick right now that I didn't have any guns, sir. Bush suggested again. This was just self-defense, Sanchez said. I didn't shoot nobody. I didn't have any gun, and I want to see my mom. Bush said, I can't let you see your mom. I can let you see your mom after we talk about this and get the truth. Bearing any resemblance to any confessions we might know? Again, Sanchez said, I did not do anything. Bush again accused Sanchez of lying. Bush said, it was an accident. Is that correct? Sanchez responded, sir, I want to see my mom. Bush limited Sanchez's choices. I need to hear it from you then. If it was an accident, or did you intend to hit him? Sanchez said, I don't have a gun. Bush persisted. Everybody's telling me it was you. Plus the GSR. You got to understand it, okay? Sanchez said, sir, if it was me, sir, I take the blame. I would say it. And I'm telling you the truth. Basically, when he's saying that he didn't do it. Now, the interesting thing is about this GSR, it was a presumptive test that they did right there. It was some kind of like quick kit. Like, it wasn't the full-on forensic science. And the interesting part about it, folks, is that when they tested the swabs they took of his hands, with those that they sent to the crime lab, and his clothes, not a trace of any kind of GSR at all on any of that. So this presumptive test, I don't know what it was measuring, but it obviously gave a false positive, and added to this whole fiasco of what they're doing to this kid. Because number one, everybody wasn't telling him these officers that Sanchez had a gun. Jesus Sanchez had a gun. No. That's not what was going on, because they were all telling him that it was this guy Bone Crusher. It's this guy that they all knew as Bone Crusher. And yeah, it's amazing though. But they're here telling these lies and doing these things, basically like, we already know what happened, Brendan, right? But anyway, so here we are seeing some of those similarities, right? So Bush returned to the tactic of getting Sanchez to blame Estrada. Sanchez eventually said, I held it, but Brian shot it. Through tears, he said, I want to get out of here. My mom is worried about me. Sanchez explained in his new story that Estrada showed him the gun, and he held it briefly. Then Estrada took it back and ran off to shoot. Sanchez said his mother just had surgery a day ago, and she doesn't know right now. She doesn't know where he is right now. She's worried about me. Bush accused Sanchez of lying and said, these tests only happen when you fire a weapon. Sanchez still said, I didn't fire no weapon. It was Brian. I didn't fire anything, sir. Bush said, Jesus, unfortunately, we already know that you did. That's a lie. Bush encouraged Sanchez to tell his side of the story. Sanchez said, I give you my side, sir. You still won't believe me. A few minutes later, Sanchez tried another revised account. He said it went off by itself, and then Estrada took it from him. Bush asked, is it a revolver or a semi-automatic? Sanchez said, it's a revolver, and I want to go home to my mom. Sanchez attempted to complete the story. He pointed on the map to where he said the gun discharged. He found a spot between the buildings numbered 540 and 544, close to 100 yards north of where Orozco stood when the bullet hit him, which is impossible because Orozco was standing facing north, folks, and he was hit in the back, which means the bullet came from the south. So it's impossible that what he just suggested, where the shooter was standing, would have ended up shooting Orozco in the front. So just so you understand that. The shooter was at the south of Orozco because Mr. Orozco was facing north. So, and the shot was in the back. So that basically tells us that it came from Equestrian Drive, which was to the south of these buildings, where in Pleasant Drive. So, okay. Earl Pisa asked Sanchez to retell the evening's events. He explained that Estrada wanted to shoot because he thought they had shot Miguel. Estrada had the gun, and when he handed it to Sanchez, it went off. Sanchez said he ran to the cops because Sereños told him he was a dead man. Oropeza asked Sanchez to retell the evening's events. Sanchez said that Miguel joined Sanchez, Estrada, Flores, and Rodriguez on Bridal Trail. Rodriguez got a call, and Miguel left with Rodriguez just before Scheffler, with Brett and Leslie, stopped by in Scheffler's white car. Sanchez, Estrada, and Flores got in Scheffler's car, and Estrada showed Sanchez Estrada's gun, a black revolver. Estrada said he was going to get those guys back. Estrada hopped out of the car, and Sanchez ran with him. Sanchez showed on the map that they got out of Scheffler's car by the 410 building. After the gun accidentally discharged, he and Estrada ran in different directions, Estrada carrying the gun. When the Serenos chased them, they met again just before running up to Sergeant Conway. Oropeza sought to clarify the route Estrada and Sanchez took when they left Scheffler's car. "Why did you guys walk around this way? Why?" Mr. Sanchez, "Brian didn't want to go through cops. I was just trying to go to my car. I was just trying to go home." Earlier that day, Sanchez had parked his car in a lot on the west side of the 492 building. Police found the car there after they arrested Sanchez. Bush said, "Listen, you did good. I'm glad you were honest with us." Sanchez immediately asked to see his mother. Bush said the police needed to clarify some things first. Sanchez pleaded, "Let me talk to her. I want to talk to my mom." Oropeza said, "You will talk to your mom, okay? All right? Just not right now, okay?" An hour later, Bush asked for a repetition of the confession. Sanchez and Scheffler drove from Bridal Trail to Longacre Lane to Equestrian Drive to Illinois Route 83 to Palatine Road. Scheffler stopped on Palatine Road, and Estrada said he wanted to shoot Serenos because he felt disrespected in the fight that took place around 3:30 p.m. on May 1st. Scheffler drove them on Palatine Road to Wheeling Road and then to the parking lot by the 410 building. Sanchez marked on the map where he was. Estrada and Flores stood when the gun went off. When they were between the buildings numbered 540 and 544, north of the 486 and 492 buildings, near where Orozco was shot. Sanchez said, when Estrada looked ready to shoot, Sanchez tried to take the gun away from him, and it went off in his hand. After the 4 shots discharged, Estrada took the gun and ran west toward the park. Bush asked for a further description of the gun, but Sanchez said only it was black with a black handle, and Sanchez did not know the caliber. Bush asked, "Was it hard to pull the trigger?" Sanchez answered, "Yeah, it was." At that conclusion of questioning, Sanchez again said, "I just want to talk to my mom." The detective said the detectives again told Sanchez to wait. More than an hour and a half later, Sanchez knocked on the door of the interview room. He asked, "Can I talk to my mom yet?" Oropeza said, "Not right now." Sanchez asked, "When can I talk to my mom?" And Oropeza said, "When we get to it." 5 minutes later, Sanchez knocked again and asked, saying, "She doesn't know where I am, and please let me talk to her." Bush told him to wait. 5 minutes later, Sanchez asked again. Oropeza said, "I got food coming for you." Sanchez answered, "I don't want any food. I want to talk to my mom." Again, the response was not right now. When Oropeza brought food a few minutes later, Sanchez repeated his plea to the same effect. After 5 minutes, Sanchez knocked again and asked to talk to his mother. "Just a quick call." Oropeza said, "No, that cannot be done." Sanchez waited almost 10 minutes before knocking again with the same result. Then 30 minutes later, a different officer said he could call his mother in a little bit. 20 minutes later, another knock, another request, and another denial. 15 minutes later, another knock, and Oropeza said, "What was the answer to your question?" Sanchez said, "Officer, please." Police came in of their own accord 15 minutes later at 2 p.m. on May 2nd and searched Sanchez for tattoos. They took Sanchez out of the interview room, listening to Sanchez repeat his plea to call his mother. They denied the request. Bush and Oropeza questioned Sanchez anew at 5 p.m. on May 3rd, 2013. Sanchez told the detectives that he had lied on May 2nd, and he and the others in the car never fired a gun. A member of the Spanish gangster disciples he knew only as Bone Crusher had threatened Sanchez and Leslie. Sanchez asked if the others in the car had all confirmed his initial account. They had all been on Bridal Trail when they heard the shots. Then they left the area and returned to the parking lot by building 410, and then Leslie got out of the car to see who got shot. Bush said, "This was a made-up story that you guys fucking already talked about regarding Bone Crusher," Bush said. "You and Leslie are trying to fabricate stuff." "Oh, yes, it's them trying to fabricate here, pal." Yikes. Keep in mind, you're hearing him say that all the people are telling him that Sanchez had a gun, but that's a lie. They're all telling him the same thing. Everybody's talking about this guy Bone Crusher, and they are not even bothering to look and find out who this Bone Crusher is and see if there's any validity to. They're not even bothering with. They're not interested. Okay, they're not interested. They just rather just shoehorn Jesus Sanchez into this here. So I just had to say it because, man, it's so ridiculous. These cops, they're fabricating, right, buddy? Bischke's initial questioning of Flores, like Orpiz's initial questioning of Sanchez, went unrecorded. The appeals court has some issues with that as well. Flores initially gave an account that closely matched Sanchez's initial account. Flores said he and Sanchez were with friends on Bridle Trail when they heard 4 gunshots. They got in Scheffler's car. They left the area but returned to find out whether Miguel had been shot. Scheffler parked by building 410. Leslie got out to find out about the shooting. Nothing Flores said implicated Sanchez in the shooting. Bischke turned on the video recorder around 10 a.m. on May 2nd, 2013, after Bush and Oropeza had obtained incriminating statements from Sanchez. He brought in a second detective to question Flores. Flores again said the group on Bridle Trail heard gunshots and got into Scheffler's car. The detectives said they knew what happened and asked whether Flores wanted to be held accountable. They asked Flores what he thought Estrada had said. Flores repeated that he heard 4 shots and he did not know where they came from. The police told Flores to stop lying. They then falsely told Flores that Sanchez and Estrada said Flores shot Orozco. Flores still said he did not know who fired the gun. The detectives told Flores falsely that Sanchez tested positive for gunshot residue. Flores, using a map like the one Sanchez used, traced the path from Scheffler's car parked by the building 410 and showed where. He went in a different direction from Estrada and Sanchez. He said Sanchez held a silver gun with a brown handle. Remember, Sanchez said it was a black gun with a black handle. Okay, right. Here we go. The detective suggested that Calleros was a pancake because he flipped from the maniac Latin disciples, the gang to which Flores belonged, to the Spanish gangster disciples. They asked if someone said, "We've got to kill the pancake." Flores said, "Yeah." The detective suggested that after the shooting. Sanchez threw the gun in the pond. Flores said, "Yeah." Flores marked the map to show where he saw Sanchez right before the shooting. He picked a location between buildings 540 and 544, the same point where he separated from Estrada and Sanchez when the Sereños started chasing them about 20 minutes after the shooting. Police searched the pond for 3 days. They found no gun. They found no shell casings by the murder scene. An officer found 1 spent bullet in a satellite dish, apparently nicked by a bullet, near the spot where a bullet hit Orozco. The officer concluded that the bullet had come from the south of where Orozco stood. The bullet that killed Orozco entered his back as he faced north, so it must have come from south of Orozco. Police never found the other bullets the killer fired. Although police found no corroboration for the statements from Sanchez and Flores, the strong physical evidence showed that the bullet could not have come from the spot where both Flores and Sanchez said Sanchez stood when the gun discharged. The state decided to charge Sanchez with the murder of Orozco and an attempted murder of Calleros. Okay, since there's really so much information really to kind of cover in this decision, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off right now here and make it part 1. And then I'm going to come back with a part 2 and finish up with basically the rest of the, all the little basic points that they made as they got further into their opinion. So we'll get to the very specific things that they begin to point out. But when you read about how that confession went, you obviously, I mean, you can tell that there's certain parallels. There's certain things that you recognize there that you've already been hearing about, because of Brendan and what's been, you know, what we've learned about the courts and about confessions and stuff because of Brendan, and you're probably recognizing some of the things that you saw, in that, what I was just reading there, about how they arrested Sanchez and Flores, how they interrogated, and the methods and that sort of thing. So anyways, that's going to be it for today, folks. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you next in part 2.